It's about time we're finally going to have a more transparent real estate market here in the GTA. And that is because the monumental changes that have taken place as of December 1st, with the biggest change being that sellers can now elect to have an open bidding process when they're selling their properties. Now, the question is, who is going to elect to do that? Why would they do it? And what does that mean for buyers? Now, this is a hotly debated topic right now in the real estate industry, and there are two schools of thought. Some people think that this is going to bring prices down because there's going to be more transparency. On the other side, other people think that prices are going to go up. I think the answer is going to be somewhere in the middle. I'm going to show you why, and I'm actually going to run you through examples of bidding wars I've had in the past and how I think sellers are now going to use this to their advantage, because as a seller, obviously you want to get the highest price possible. And I'm going to explain why certain things will work with open bidding to get the higher price and why sometimes it will not. My name is Vas, and I'm a real estate broker right here in the city of Toronto, where I help buyers and sellers navigate the dynamic nature of our real estate market. Now, before getting into the video, it's good for us to understand that there's a lot of frustration, especially on the buying side, when you're trying to buy a property, especially in the days of crazy bidding wars where you're constantly getting outbid. Every home sells in 7 to 8 days, and you feel helpless. You can't do anything about it. So from that perspective, I actually think it's great that finally we're giving this option to sellers to have transparent bidding, because transparency is, after all, one of the most important things in an industry that doesn't have the best reputation for transparency. So I think this is great. Less fortunate part, or at least what I think will happen, is this transparency is going to come at a cost to the consumer. And I do think it will actually cause prices to increase. Hopefully not by much, and hopefully maybe I'm wrong, because I don't think transparency should have a cost attached to it. We should have a transparent market to begin with. For a quick recap in terms of what used to happen with bidding wars in the past, the only thing as a buyer and as a buyer's agent that you would know is the number of offers that were on a specific property. So if you bid on a property, you would know there were 5 offers or 6 offers or 9 offers or 1 offer. Now, you wouldn't know anything else beyond that. You wouldn't know any of the contents that were in those offers. The difference now is, as of December 1st, the seller can choose what they want to disclose to the buyers during the offer process. Cutting right through the noise, I mean, they say they can disclose the deposits of other offers, the closing dates, the conditions. Ultimately, the only thing pretty much everybody is going to care about is what is the price that's being offered by the other competing buyers. And this is where sellers are going to find themselves in a position where sometimes disclosing that or electing to disclose that will benefit them, and other times it will not. And I will run you through examples of offer nights I've had in the past to show you how it works and typically to see behind the scenes. Now, here's an example of what happens behind the scenes when you run an offer night. At least this is how I do it. I've had to delete a bunch of relevant information, obviously, for confidentiality, because this is from an offer night I actually had earlier this year. So I don't want to get into super specific things, but I will show you the grand scheme of things, what I present to the client, what we're discussing, what we're evaluating, how we're thinking about it, and then what happens next. This way you'll understand if releasing the offer details actually makes sense or if it doesn't. So in this particular situation, we had a detached home that was listed, and we were aiming to get about 1.35 to 1.4. That's basically where the market value assessment of the property came in. And we had 6 offers on offer night. So here are the details. So usually what I personally do is I'll have the agent's name, their phone number, the price they came in at, their deposit. They're revocable. Usually it's midnight of that evening, and then there are different closing dates. And usually we communicate this to the agent ahead of time so that they know what we want as the sellers. So for the most part, no big surprises here. Then I'll have a column with conditions. Typically on offer nights, you don't get much in the way of conditions, but this has changed drastically, especially nowadays. Towards the end of 2023, you will get multiple offers, but you'll get all kinds of conditions because buyers are a lot more careful. Then I'll have what's called a buyer risk profile, where I will do my due diligence on every single buyer that's put in an offer, at least the ones that I think we may be working with, to make sure that they can close, they have the money. I will look if they own other properties, just different things to feel that I'm not going to have issues with these people if we go through with this deal with them. And then obviously, based on my conversation with the agent, I will find out, or kind of dig around, read between the lines, whether or not these people would be willing to improve, or if this is their best and final, etc. There's a lot more to it. There's about 6 other columns that I haven't included, but I don't think they matter for the purposes of what I'm trying to explain here. But this is what an offer night looks like from my end. So let's take a look at the actual prices. As I said before, market price for this property was between 1.35 and 1.4. These are the offers I received that evening. It was obviously priced less than that. So we had 1.361, 1.37, 1.298, and then we had 1.28, 1.28, and 1.2. So obviously this person, you have a lot of these people, sometimes they're not serious. They'll just throw in a low ball offer, whatever. You had 2 people that were pretty serious out of the gate. And then we had 3 people right here that were like They probably came in low because they didn't know how many offers we're going to have in total. So they came in low, but they were willing to improve. So it wasn't their best and final, except this person right here. Okay, so this is round one. Okay, now let's move into the improved offers and what happens next under the old way. After reviewing every single offer, going back and forth with the sellers to kind of let them know where we're at, I start working with the buying agents, at least the runners up, to just kind of let them know where they're at, what it's going to take to get this deal done. Obviously with the intent of trying to get the highest price for my sellers, which are my clients. Now, what happened in this particular scenario? Agent number 2 that was at 137, they improved to 138. The ones that came in at 1.28 here, agent number 2, they improved by 100 grand. They came in at 1.38. Everybody else decided to just not do anything. Maybe they figured, you know what, this is going to go for more money than they're willing to spend. This person here with the low ball offer never had a chance to begin with, but here we are. And the only thing agent 1 came in that had the strongest, or one of the stronger offers during round 1, is they removed their home inspection condition. So they were willing to come in firm. So far, so good. This is the old way. So this is where there's no transparency to the buyers, and a lot of times buyers were very upset because they didn't know if they're significantly overpaying. My experience, for the most part, generally speaking, offers are fairly close. So as you will see right here, the final or the top 3 offers, 1361, 138, 138, these two are actually the same. So the discrepancy is not that big on offer nights. You don't have somebody coming in at 1.6 on a property that the market value is 135, 1.4. Usually the ranges are pretty tight, and that's probably for 90% of listings. Now let's run this back as if this happened after December 1st and the sellers were in this exact same position and they were pondering whether or not they should open up the offers and show the details of every single offer to all other buyers so that they can see if they can get more money. And here's where I think things get a little bit tricky. So in this situation, after you've had your round of improvements and you now have 3 offers at 1361, 138, and 138, what do you think would happen if these were opened up for everybody to see? My opinion, and at least this is what I think will happen, is these people are at this point where they're so close that if we open this up, this property could now probably go into the 1.4s because we're talking 10, 20 grand to beat out the last offer. So this is where it's still unclear in terms of how this is going to play out, because let's say it's 10 o'clock in the evening, everybody's improved, these are the final offers, and the seller is going to say, hey, let's release all the contents of these offers, obviously without the names of the buyers, and see if we can get them up even further. And I think at this point, I think these people would likely be willing to come up. That's my personal take. So in a situation like this where the offers are fairly close, I think the sellers will elect to open up the contents of the offers so they can get even more money, and I think it will work. Now here's where I don't think it will work to the benefit of the seller. Let's assume we had an offer night, same property, but instead of 5 or 6 offers, we had a lot less. So let's say this offer didn't come in. We'll just take that out. Let's say these 2 offers didn't come in. And let's say, and let's leave it like this. So we have 3 offers. Market value of this property is 135 to 1.4. We have 3 offers. We have 1361 right at market value. And then we have 2 offers that are significantly below. You can try to improve, but there's only 3 offers. In a situation like this, I think there's a lot of risk for the seller to actually lose the best offer. So somebody came in at market value, because remember, we comped this property between 135 and 1.4. Somebody came in at this, they have a home inspection, but fine, they're a strong candidate, they really want the house. And then you can also try to negotiate to get rid of this home inspection so it's a firm deal. However, imagine opening up these offers at this stage. This person is likely going to feel like they're overpaying significantly relative to the other 2 offers. Although this person might be willing to improve, we just don't know. So there's a lot of risk that the seller carries at this point where they might lose the actual transaction. Typically, in my experience, if you're working with competent agents and they know that the value is 1.35 to 1.4, it probably is still going to go through. But again, if I was the buying agent or in the shoes of that buyer and I know that I'm paying 1.361 and I know the market value is 1.35, I would still feel very uneasy that everybody else offered a lot less than me, even though they're lowballing and they're not actually making any reasonable offers. So this is where I think it's going to get tricky, and I think sellers are going to likely elect not to disclose, but I don't know. I don't know. This is just kind of like my gut feeling based on my experience being in these situations. If the offers are relatively close, sellers will open up the offers to try to bid them up even further, because there's a lot of evidence to show that when you have multiple people close together in their price ranges, they're likely going to continue bidding up the property. But if you have a bunch of offers with one really significantly higher, regardless if it's an overpay or not, I think at that point the seller is going to elect not to disclose because they don't want to lose the deal. Now let me give you evidence to show you why I think if you have a bunch of offers close together, people are going to continue bidding up the property. There's an article from a couple of years back that actually just talks about the human nature of all of this blind bidding versus open bidding. So despite the criticism, it's possible blind bidding for houses might be good for you. I know it sounds, it makes no sense like when you read it, but the report points out that in some jurisdictions where open bidding or open negotiations are permitted, such as Australia, New Zealand, and Sweden, house prices have escalated faster than in Canada. And based on recent changes in prices, the report argues that it's hard to conclude that blind bidding is associated with higher residential real estate prices. While Canada has experienced some of the highest real estate prices growth in the world, New Zealand, where open bidding for homes is common, has experienced even faster growth. Now, at face value, this is not sufficient enough for me to say, hey, it's open bidding that caused that. However, there's just a ton of evidence that open bidding generally will cause it. And I think early on, which unfortunately I cannot find the article on this, but in Australia, when it was introduced, I believe they saw a big spike in prices because of this open bidding. And I think that is likely going to happen here as well. Now, obviously, it could have been something else. It could have been market dynamics. But generally, if you see an immediate spike above and beyond seasonal norms, it's safe to say that it can be attributed to open bidding. Now, here's a different angle to look at this. And this is something I'm very familiar with. And it comes down to purchasing cars from auction sites. And I will give you an example right now to show you how open bidding drives up prices on cars. This is probably one of my, I can't say it's my favorite website. It's a love-hate relationship with this website because, for one, I can go and see what used car prices are at and where they're trending. However, this website single-handedly is probably responsible for increasing the prices on a lot of very sought-after vehicles. So very much a love-hate relationship. You can talk to other people in the car industry. This website, when you post here, you're probably going to get top dollar for your car. But anyway, there's a bunch of factors that go into it. So here's what I'm going to show you. On this website, you can watch live auctions of cars as they're coming up for sale. And I do this sometimes for fun because I'm a nerd. Now, let's go and take a look at some of the auctions that are currently happening as we speak and as they're about to end. So right now, this beautiful 993 Turbo S Porsche is for sale. This is probably like a dream car, but they're so out of touch right now. Like you can't even get them. Back in the day, you could get these things, but I mean, you're looking at 390,000 US at this point. Like we're reaching absurd levels, and this is thank you to Bring a Trailer and other websites that have just really driven the values of these cars up. But anyway, the current bid right now is $390,000, and there's 2 hours left in this auction. Beautiful car. I mean, this thing is just absolutely legit. So here's what happens. You can watch the bidding live, and what ends up happening is usually 20 minutes before the auction ends. Unfortunately, there isn't an auction that ends in the next 20 minutes. Everything's like 2 hours out. As you'll see, 10:04 a.m. So right now it's almost 11. At 10:04, somebody plays 375. 10:42, it's 390. And I guarantee you, by the time the next hour or two is done, this thing is probably going to be well over like $500,000. And this is typically what happens. All the bids start rolling in towards the end of the auction. Ultimately, this is what's likely going to happen with the open bidding in a house. Obviously, it's going to depend on how many people there are and how close the offers were. If somebody came in here and posted up a bid of $700,000, which is a massive overpay, then obviously this thing is done. Somebody's going to pay $700K or roughly $1 million Canadian and be done with it. But if nobody overpays significantly, chances are they're going to continue not nickel and diming each other, but 10K, 10K, 15K, and it's going to just work its way right up. And I think that is exactly what's going to happen in open bidding with close offers. And I think that is also what ends up happening in Australia. Now, we've talked about mostly the seller's considerations or what they have to consider when going open bidding, but there are considerations the buyers actually have to make. So here's a quick summary of that. As a buyer, if you're a buyer, you decide whether you or not you want to participate in a process where the content of your offer might be shared with other buyers. Your agent can tell you the steps to take to avoid having the content of your offer shared with other buyers, and be aware that a seller can make the decision to share the content of offers at any time. You may not know in advance, meaning you might be going into an offer night and the seller has not told us anything in terms of if they're going to do open bidding or not. Assume they're not, and then halfway through the open bidding process, because they've decided it's going to be more advantageous for them to release the information, then what ends up happening is you might get blindsided and boom, it's like your offer details are being shared. Now, your name is not going to be shared, it's just the contents of your offer, like the amount, closing, and all that stuff, or whatever the seller actually decides to do. Because this has been raised as a concern, and I don't know why it's a concern, maybe somebody in the comments can let me know why this is a concern to you. Here's what you can do as a buyer. You can put this clause, which is very confusing. I don't know why anyone would do it, but effectively, notwithstanding that the seller has the right pursuant to the TRESA Act to disclose the details and content of this offer, the buyer and seller agreed that if the seller discloses the whole or any part of the details or content of this offer prior to acceptance, then this offer shall be forthwith upon such disclosure be revoked and become null and void, and any deposit shall be returned to the buyer in full without deduction. In other words, you can put a clause in to make your offer null and void. So basically, they don't disclose the details of your offer and you're basically out. So effectively, the seller elects to do it. If you're one of the 3 or 4 offers, they know that one of the offers is gone and there's going to be only 3 offers left after they release that information. Now, as a serious buyer, I don't know why you would elect to do this, because this immediately disqualifies you from trying to win this property. Now, if you're not willing to go up in price, that's fine. Don't go up in price, but why remove yourself from actually trying to get this property? Maybe your offer is good. So why make it null and void when you've basically eliminated all chances of getting this property? I'm not quite certain why this is here. I think it's like a feel-good clause, as if the buyer is protected in a sense, but I really don't understand why anybody would use it. And I haven't seen anybody actually use it. It's just there as, I believe, lip service. But beyond that, it makes no sense to me. Like, they're not going to divulge any of your private information. It's just the content of your offer. That's about it, which is the price, irrevocable, closing, and all that stuff, or whatever the seller elects. I hope you found this video useful. This is kind of how I feel about it. Obviously, this is my opinion. I don't know what will actually happen, but based on what I've seen, the research I've done, I think this is how this is going to go on forward. Sellers are likely not going to disclose offer details unless it's beneficial to them. And if it is, they're going to go to the open offer process when prices are tight and close together, and they're probably going to get more money.